Nigeria's recovery from its worst recession in 3 decades has become a major talking point across the country. In view of this, the Nigerian-American Chamber of Commerce, in its February 2017 breakfast meeting, hosted a discourse on the theme, Getting Nigeria Out of Recession, the 2017 Budget and Business Outlook. Giving his opening remarks, the president of the NACC, Chief Olabinton Famutimi, shared why the topic of discourse was relevant at the moment.
Please permit me to mention 4 key areas in which the business community has been critical of the management of the economy. The first is the multiple foreign exchange rates being employed by the CBN. It is our humble view that this creates distortion in the economy and will be counterproductive to any rationalization efforts in streamlining the economy. It will also inevitably encourage corruption. Secondly, is the lack of sufficient involvement of the private sector in the constitution of the nation's economic management team. Whatever policies that they are discussing and programs they want to execute, if it doesn't involve the private sector, then it will have no traction. Suffice it to say that there can be no logic in leaving out the people who carry the can and face the problems in the economy from the day-to-day management. The least government can do is to employ them actively in the effort to find solutions to the nation's economic quagmire. We believe these are areas which the federal government should seriously make amends in the interest of the economy.
The United States Commercial Officer for the Consulate Office in Nigeria, Mr. Daniel Gaines, gave the goodwill message from his country.
We support the efforts of the NACC in advancing best business practices, such as transparency, good governance, skills development, technology transfer, and corporate social responsibility. The NACC has been and continues to be a great partner to the U.S. in growing bilateral trade and engagement, and we look forward to another year of cooperation and economic growth together. We realize that we are in challenging economic times, and like the rest of you, we look forward to hearing more about the plan for the budget and its effect on the business outlook. We stand ready to support the efforts of the Nigerian government and private sector aimed at liberalizing the economy and making it easier for American and international companies and investors to come and do business in Nigeria.
Economist and CEO of Financial Derivatives, Mr. Bismarck Rewani, spoke on monetary policy, the financial markets, and the economy.
There's a disconnect between the message, the reality, and the aspiration. So, as economists, the only missing ingredient here, everything else is working right, is the confidence of people to know that 2017 theoretically should be 100% better than what it was in 2016. That's all. Allow markets to do what they do, regulators to regulate and pick out those who are doing the wrong things. Regulators cannot set prices, cannot and should not.
Panelists in their contribution identified the key challenges in the Nigerian economy and suggested steps that should be taken to stabilize it.
For every time we invite foreign consultants, foreign investors to come to take a look at what's happening in Nigeria, 9 out of 10 times they don't get visas. Whether they're from South Africa, whether they're from Belgium, Europe, whether they're from the US, it is so difficult to come to Nigeria. In Rwanda, if you go to Kigali today, all you need is your passport and a purpose and a hotel booking. You get visa on arrival. Rwanda now is the darling of conferences globally. I mean, in Africa, is the destination. Because they've deliberately said, look, we will like to invite people to come into Kigali and do business. And you know, those things that we do rightly, that we send the right message, it's communication. We're communicating that we want to do business, that we welcome you, come and do business. That is the confidence that we need to put back in the investment.
I think that this is really a moment of truth for Nigeria. We pretended we had a functioning economy at $100 oil. We didn't really. At this stage, as said earlier, we've all said there's no path forward without getting investment from the outside. There's no way we're going to get that investment unless we deal with the exchange rate issue. Sometimes I read the newspaper and a governor announces he created 500 jobs or 100 jobs. This country needs 2 to 3 million new jobs a year to make a dent. We need jobs in Lagos, we need jobs in Calabar, we need jobs in Kano, we need jobs in Kaduna. Every state is going to have to figure out how to attract both domestic, because it's also domestic investment, but domestic and foreign investment. And the federal government is not powerful enough it can't make this happen. I mean, to put this in perspective, we talked about how little they're investing. The total expenditure of the federal government is only 7% of GDP on that. So we need all the state governors to figure it out at their local level. They need the exchange rate regime to come in. I think the Egypt example should be just said again and again and again because it's so recent and has worked so well.
Change the market structure. If you change that market structure today, rather than wait and say we build a backlog and we do a forward contract after 60 days, the backlog should not have been there. If you were selling $20 million a day, people will know. And so what investors want is not stability of the currency, they want predictability. Right. That if the price is this, the production is that, everybody can get supplier credit. Everybody can get, there are people willing to do business with Nigeria, to trade with Nigeria, to invest in Nigeria, as long as the rules are clear. And you cannot come in and say when you bring your money in, then we'll tell you when. No, that's uncertainty has to be. I think that is the key. So if you look at all the parameters, there's nothing that convinces me more. First and foremost, you are going to have positive growth, even in second quarter of this year. You're going to have positive growth in GDP, not as much as what we require, because we require to grow about 7-8% to employ our resources. But that's the beginning of that slow recovery. The recovery is going to be slow, painful, and certain things have to happen. This foreign exchange cabal and market has to be dismantled immediately.
The president of the NACC and some of the key panelists give their takeaways from the discourse.
From the business community, you've talked about government actively engaging the private sector, and you are also in some way discussions with them. Do we see that prospect improving this year to move the economy forward?
Well, you can't have a change overnight because government is not business. And our own is to continue to push for them to do the right things, okay? And hoping that we will be able to get results in them engaging with the private sector to drive business. They cannot be successful without engaging with the private sector. And we'll continue to send that message.
Takeaways from this session is that the Nigerian market and the Nigerian people are desperately in demand of answers that are consistent, answers that are clear, answers that are credible, so that they must know, 1, the extent of the problem, 2, the solutions, and 3, the probability of success of whether the policy options are going to bring out the solutions that are desired.
Well, I think this conference really focused on the relationship between the budget and coming out of the recession. There are a lot of good elements in the budget, the railway in Ibadan, school feeding program. But I think it's really important for everyone to understand the federal government spending is actually quite small. So total investment is a 2 trillion naira capital investment from the budget this year. The total economy here is over 100 trillion naira, so it's only a little less than 2% of our budget. And we need investment that's probably 10 to 20 times bigger than what the federal government's investing. So the federal government's doing its part, but we need the private sector to come. And the way the private sector is going to come and invest is if they have confidence, ease of doing business, There also needs to be a fixing, a clarifying of the FX regime, because that's really preventing us getting foreign direct investment and getting foreign portfolio investment.
It's very clear, based on the discussions on the panel. Number one, it's not the budget alone that takes the country out of recession, because considering that the budget spending itself is approximately 2% of the GDP of the country, I think private sector, trade, etc., are the things that would take us out of the recession. However, there were some issues that were identified, economic structural issues, such as the state of power, infrastructure, etc. But the fundamental key issue that was discussed was actually the FX policy of the central bank. And clearly, people on the panel, as well as within the audience, were clamoring or calling for the floating of the naira. The case of Egypt was brought out and discussed, and certainly Egypt's currency is now strengthening. I think it had gone up by about 40% or so since the intervention that happened in November. So the floating that happened in November, because it was backed with an IMF line of credit that they didn't even have to, utilize. So if Nigeria were to do something similar, we will see a convergence of the rate between the parallel and the official, and availability may not become an issue if there is a backing of the IMF, and thereby that supply and the demand distortions would be sorted out for the FX, and that would become the panacea for the growth that we were talking about.
With a challenging economic situation in the nation, the government now has a golden opportunity to drive policies that will lead to a recovery from recession, restoration of investor confidence, and repositioning of Nigeria as a competitive economy.